The successful European transformation created ripple effects that spread far beyond the continent's borders, inspiring similar independence movements among America's most trusted allies across multiple regions. The speed and scope of European autonomy demonstrated that even the closest American partners could successfully reduce their dependence on Washington's security guarantees and economic systems. This realization triggered a wave of strategic reassessments in capitals from Seoul to Canberra, as governments that had relied on American protection for decades began questioning whether such dependence remained necessary or even advisable in an era of unpredictable American leadership. China, Japan, and South Korea resumed their trilateral economic dialogue in June 2025 to address the aid gaps left by reduced American engagement, according to Reuters. The three nations established new cooperation frameworks that operated independently of American oversight or participation. This trilateral partnership focused on supply chain integration, technology sharing, and coordinated responses to regional security challenges. The dialogue marked the first time since World War II that these three countries had created comprehensive economic cooperation mechanisms without American involvement or approval. The regional comprehensive economic partnership served as an alternative trade bloc that reduced Asian dependence on American markets while strengthening intra-regional commerce. Countries like South Korea began questioning their dependence on American security guarantees as they observed Europe's successful military independence. South Korean defense officials studied European defense spending models and concluded that their country could achieve similar autonomy by increasing defense expenditures from 2.8% to 4.2% of GDP over 3 years. This increase would fund domestic weapons production, advanced missile defense systems, and expanded military cooperation with regional partners, including Japan and Australia. South Korean officials privately acknowledged that Trump's unpredictable approach to alliance management had created uncertainty about American commitment levels that made European-style independence increasingly attractive. Japan's strategic reassessment accelerated during 2025 as Japanese leaders recognized that European nations had successfully reduced their American dependence without triggering security crises. Japanese Defense Minister Minoru Kuhara announced plans to increase defense spending to 3.5% of GDP by 2027, focusing on indigenous weapons development and expanded partnerships with European defense contractors. Japan signed preliminary agreements with France and Germany for joint development of advanced missile systems and cyber warfare capabilities, creating the first significant Japanese-European defense partnerships since World War II. These agreements specifically excluded American participation, marking a dramatic shift in Japanese strategic thinking. Australia's government initiated comprehensive reviews of its alliance relationships after observing how European nations had strengthened their security while reducing American dependence. Australian officials conducted classified studies examining whether their country could maintain regional security through expanded partnerships with European nations, Japan, and India rather than relying primarily on American security guarantees. The Australian Defence Force increased its cooperation with European military forces, participating in joint exercises with French and German units, while exploring equipment purchases from European rather than American manufacturers. New multilateral partnerships emerged as traditional American-led alliance structures weakened under the pressure of Trump's unpredictable policies. The Indo-Pacific Security Dialogue, established in September 2025, brought together Japan, South Korea, Australia, and several European nations to coordinate regional security responses without American participation. This forum conducted quarterly meetings focused on maritime security, cybersecurity cooperation, and coordinated responses to regional threats. The dialogue deliberately excluded the United States, marking the first time since World War II that major American allies had created a security coordination mechanism without American involvement. International organizations experienced unprecedented challenges to American influence as European alternatives gained credibility and support. The World Bank faced its first serious challenge since its founding when European nations established the Global Development Finance Institution with initial capital of 120 billion euros. This institution offered development loans and technical assistance to developing countries with less stringent conditions than traditional World Bank programs. The International Monetary Fund encountered similar competition when European nations created the European Monetary Stability Mechanism, which provided emergency financial assistance to countries experiencing currency crises without requiring the austerity measures typically demanded by IMF programs. Diplomatic realignments occurred across multiple regions as nations evaluated the relative advantages of European versus American leadership models. Middle Eastern countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, increased their diplomatic engagement with European nations while reducing their dependence on American security partnerships. These countries signed comprehensive cooperation agreements with European nations covering energy, defense, and economic development while maintaining more limited relationships with the United States. The shift reflected growing regional confidence that European partnerships offered more stability and predictability than American relationships. The competition for influence in key regions created opportunities for countries to gain leverage by balancing European and American interests against each other. Brazil successfully negotiated favorable trade agreements with both European and American partners by threatening to align exclusively with whichever side offered better terms. India expanded its strategic partnerships with European nations while maintaining its American relationships, creating a balanced approach that maximized Indian influence in international affairs. These global realignments established patterns that would prove far more durable than the specific policies that created them, setting the stage for a fundamentally different world order that would outlast any single American administration. Projecting forward to 2029, the trajectory established during Trump's second term points toward a fundamentally multipolar world where American hegemony has been permanently fractured by January 2029. Based on current developments, Europe will have completed its transformation into a fully independent strategic actor with military capabilities, economic partnerships, and diplomatic influence that operate completely separately from American systems. The European Defense Solidarity Fund will have grown to over 400 billion euros by 2029, while European military production capacity will exceed American levels in several key categories, including artillery systems, air defense networks, and cyber warfare capabilities. European space programs will have launched over 200 satellites, creating communications and navigation systems that rival American GPS and military satellite networks. These developments represent irreversible changes in the global balance of power that will persist regardless of who occupies the White House after Trump. The irreversible nature of Europe's transformation means that future American presidents will inherit a continent that no longer depends on Washington for security, economic stability, or diplomatic leadership. European technological independence will have reached the point where European companies provide alternatives to all major American technology systems, from semiconductors to artificial intelligence to cloud computing services. European financial systems will process international transactions worth over 2 trillion euros annually without involving American banks or dollar-denominated payments. European military forces will have conducted hundreds of joint exercises and operations without American participation, demonstrating complete operational independence that cannot be easily reversed through diplomatic negotiations or policy changes. Europe's new capabilities and partnerships will continue expanding through 2029 regardless of changes in American leadership, because the institutional frameworks and financial commitments are now embedded in European law and international agreements. The European Autonomous Defense Command will have expanded to include 12 member nations with joint military facilities across the continent. European defense contractors will have signed production contracts extending through 2032, ensuring continued military development independent of American approval or cooperation. Trade agreements between Europe and partners in Asia, Africa, and Latin America will have created economic relationships worth over 800 billion euros annually, reducing European dependence on American markets to historically low levels. The potential for serious conflict will increase as America realizes the extent to which it has lost its dominant position in European affairs. American military leaders will face the unprecedented challenge of coordinating with European forces that no longer automatically defer to American command structures or strategic priorities. Economic conflicts will intensify as European companies compete directly with American businesses in markets that were previously dominated by American firms. The EU is expected to face new 20% tariffs on up to 380 billion euros worth of exports to the U.S. While the EU setup makes it uniquely well-positioned to manage a tariff war with its competent trade bureaucracy and power to negotiate on behalf of the entire bloc. The next American president will inherit a transatlantic relationship that has been fundamentally altered beyond recognition. Traditional NATO structures will have evolved into hybrid arrangements where European nations maintain parallel command systems that can operate independently of American oversight. American military bases in Europe will have been reduced by over 60%, with many former American facilities now hosting European forces from multiple nations. Economic ties between America and Europe will have been restructured around competitive rather than cooperative frameworks, with tariffs and trade restrictions creating permanent barriers to the integrated economic relationship that existed before Trump's second term. The economic and military balance of power that will exist in 2029 represents a dramatic shift from the American-dominated system that characterized 2025. Europe's combined defense spending will exceed 650 billion euros annually, approaching parity with American defense expenditures, while focusing specifically on European rather than global security requirements. European economic output will be less dependent on American markets, with transatlantic trade representing only 18% of total European commerce compared to 31% in 2024. The EU economy is forecast to experience moderate growth through 2029, with real GDP growth projected at 1.1% in 2025 and accelerating to 1.5% in 2026, though operating below potential for nearly 7 consecutive years. European public opinion has solidified behind this independence movement, with European Commission polling showing 73% support for continued Ukraine aid and higher defense spending despite economic pressures. This represents a fundamental shift in European attitudes toward American leadership and continental autonomy. European citizens increasingly view their nation's independence from American influence as essential for long-term security and prosperity, creating democratic mandates that will sustain these policies regardless of changing political circumstances. The question of whether the transatlantic relationship can ever be fully repaired remains genuinely uncertain given the structural changes that will have occurred by 2029. European political leaders who have built their careers on promoting European independence will be reluctant to return to American-dependent systems, even if future American administrations offer more cooperative approaches. European defense industries will have invested hundreds of billions of euros in independent production capabilities that would be wasted if European nations returned to purchasing American military equipment. Generational changes across Europe will make independence from American influence the new normal for future European leaders who have grown up during the period of transatlantic conflict and European autonomy. Political leaders who entered government during Trump's second term will have built their careers around European independence rather than Atlantic partnership. European military officers will have been trained in systems that operate independently of American command structures. These generational changes will create institutional momentum that maintains European independence even if political circumstances change. The ultimate irony of Trump's second term may be that his attempt to make America great again through demands for greater European dependence actually accelerated the end of American global dominance by forcing Europe to develop independent capabilities that permanently reduced American influence. The long-term consequences of this transformation will reshape international relations in ways that extend far beyond the specific policies that created them. What we are witnessing represents the most significant shift in Western power dynamics since World War II, creating a multipolar world where America must compete with rather than lead its former allies. Trump's second term has fundamentally and permanently altered the global balance of power in ways that will define international relations for decades. Europe has emerged as an independent superpower with military capabilities, economic partnerships, and diplomatic influence that operate completely separately from American systems. The transformation has been supported by substantial European investments in technological independence, including the EU CHIPS Act funding of 43 billion euros from 2023 through 2027 and comprehensive digital regulations through the Digital Services Act. These initiatives have created the foundation for European autonomy that extends far beyond traditional military and diplomatic independence.